Can you drive a manual car? According to a survey conducted by Kelley Blue Book, 66% of Americans know how to drive a manual transmission. Today, I'm going to teach you how to drive a manual car. I've been driving manual cars for about 4 months now. So first, I'm going to talk to you about the benefits of a manual car. Next, I'll talk about a clutch and how to operate it. And then finally, I'll teach you how to drive a manual car. And before I teach you how to drive, let's talk about the benefits of a manual car. Driving a manual car offers many benefits. In the event of an emergency, and the only available car is the manual, you'll be fine. According to the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration, texting and driving claimed the lives of 3,142 people in 2019. As manual cars are very hands-on, if you have a texting and driving problem, that won't be a thing with a manual. You won't have the opportunity to text and drive, and therefore you won't have to worry about your problem. Another benefit is that manuals are cheaper than automatics. While they're also cheaper up front, simply because the transmissions require less parts, manuals are more fuel efficient, so you won't have to fill up your tank as much, saving you a lot of money, both up front and in the long run. Now that you know about the benefits of a manual, it's time to teach you how to operate a clutch. As you can see, we have 3 pedals. We have the gas, the brake, and then finally, the clutch. When you push the clutch in, it disconnects the transmission and the flywheel so that it disengages your transmission. Right now, the car is in neutral. That means we are not in gear, and we are also not in reverse. If I were to give it gas, it would rev the engine. However, if I were in gear and I'd give it gas, we would accelerate. So when you want to shift, you'll have to release the gas, press the clutch the whole way in, take your shift knob to the next gear, release the clutch, and as you get to the last parts of releasing the clutch, you want to give it a little bit of gas. That way the transition between gears can be as smooth as possible. According to how stuff works, double clutching is a method that was commonly required in older vehicles, and some race cars still require you use it. According to Jason Fanks from Road and Track, in order to double clutch, you have to press the clutch in, shift your car into neutral, release the clutch, press it in again, shift your car into the previous gear, blip the throttle, and then release the clutch. So one of the most important things you need to know is when it's time to either shift or downshift. So it all depends on your car. No 2 cars will always need to shift at the same RPM. So generally, it's basically you just get a feel for your own personal car. Me personally, I like to shift whenever I'm around 3,000 or 4,000 RPM if I'm just driving casually. So I'll go from first until about 3,000 RPM, and then I'll shift into second, and then continue each time I hit roughly 3,000 or 4,000 RPM. I'll go up a gear, and I continue to repeat that. I talked to you a little bit about what downshifting was when I was talking about double clutching, but it is very, very important that you know what exactly downshifting is and how to do it. So say we're cruising in 4th gear, and everybody in front of us is driving rather slow, so our RPM begins to go down to roughly 1,000 to 2,000 RPM. Before it gets too low and we stall out, we're going to want to downshift. So what you have to do is push your clutch in, take your gear from 4th gear to 3rd gear. You're going to want to blip the throttle and then release the clutch. If you go from 4th gear into 3rd gear and you don't blip the throttle, the shift is going to feel very rough and you'll likely hit your forehead on your steering wheel. So therefore it is very important that you make sure to blip the throttle with each downshift, because it'll also extend the life of your transmission. One thing I do want to make note of is double clutching is a very advanced technique. It is much better that you downshift properly before you start trying to double clutch on everything. So first, it's definitely important to make sure you're clutching in, shifting to 3rd gear or whatever previous gear you need to go into, blip the throttle, and then release the clutch. It is much more important you do that than overworking yourself by trying to simultaneously learn how to take your car into neutral, release the clutch, push the clutch back in, go into the previous gear, flip the throttle, release the clutch. It's just going to be much more easier on you if you learn downshifting and just simply how to drive before you try to master double clutching. So when you start from a stop, you're going to want to go into first gear, and you need to slowly release the clutch, but you also need to give it gas simultaneously. That way you don't stall out and you can start moving. So when you're on a hill, you're going to have far less time in order to react. So we're going to start in first again, but this time we're going to release the clutch while still releasing it slowly. We're going to need to move much quicker. That way we don't stall out and end up hitting the bumper behind us. Now that you know how to drive a manual car, I'd like to give a quick recap. So we went over the benefits, how to operate a clutch, and then I told you how to drive the manual. Well, ultimately, the choice is yours. I think both manuals and automatics are great cars, and you should definitely learn how to drive them. Thank you for listening to my speech, and I hope you were at least able to learn how to drive a manual car.